Tell you what, for a team that had players scattered across beaches, couches, and probably a few remote corners of the earth during their bye week, the Pittsburgh Steelers managed to come out of the weekend looking like the biggest winners in the entire AFC North. And they didn't even have to lace up a cleat. It's wild how the league works sometimes. While the Steelers were enjoying some well-earned rest, every other team in the division managed to trip over their own feet, and in some cases, absolutely collapse. The Browns took a trip to London and came back with an ugly loss to the Vikings. The Ravens? Embarrassed at home by the Texans. And the Bengals? Well, Joe Burrow or no Joe Burrow, they were predictably outclassed by the Lions. Add up the scores from those 3 games, and it's a brutal picture, a combined 102-51. That's a 2-to-1 ratio, and not the kind you want to be on the wrong end of. So yeah, the Steelers spent the weekend resting up and somehow still gained ground. Now, don't get me wrong. Nobody in Pittsburgh is out here throwing parades over a 3-1 start. We've been here before. The hype train left the station last season too, when the team was sitting at 10-3. But what followed was a reality check, and a painful one. Missed opportunities, failure to close out the division, and a season that left a sour taste in everyone's mouth. So no one's jumping ahead of themselves. This is just week 5, but still, there's something to be said about being the only team in your division playing smart, consistent football while everyone else is busy trying to figure out which way is up. What makes this stretch even more important is what's coming next. The Steelers are about to enter the meat of their divisional schedule. First up, the Browns coming into town this weekend. And say what you want about past quotes and memes, the Browns is the Browns and all that. But this version of Cleveland is more symbolic of the mess that the entire AFC North has become. They don't have a reliable quarterback. They're not winning games they should. And their margin for error is rapidly shrinking. Then, just a few days later, the Steelers head to Cincinnati for a Thursday night showdown with the Bengals, a team that's still reeling without Burrow and trying to keep its season alive with duct tape and hope. And let's not forget about Baltimore. The Ravens have been plagued by injuries to a degree that would derail almost any team in the league. Lamar Jackson's not healthy. Roquan Smith's banged up. Their depth is paper thin, and it's showing. And things don't get any easier for them with a tough matchup coming up against the Rams, a team that's sitting at 3-2 and just pushed the 4-1 49ers to overtime. If Baltimore loses again, they could be staring at a 1-5 start with no bye week in sight until after that Rams game. So the timing couldn't be better for Pittsburgh. While their rivals are scrambling for answers, the Steelers are quietly, and I do mean quietly, figuring things out. The offense isn't perfect. The defense has had its issues. But here's the thing. The problems they have feel fixable. They're not fundamental breakdowns. They're not things that require overhauls or trades or massive scheme changes. We're talking about communication, tackling, cohesion, stuff that comes with reps, time, and coaching. Even the offensive line, which has been the subject of so many gripes over the last year, looks like it has a path forward. You want more push up front? Rotate in Spencer Anderson for 20 snaps. Need help sealing the edge? Stick Darnell Washington next to Broderick Jones and let them maul people. There are adjustments that can be made, and that's the encouraging part. We're not watching a team that's capped out. We're watching a team that might just be scratching the surface. And listen, no one's saying this squad is going undefeated from here on out. That's not realistic. They're not locks to sweep these next 2 games. But when you look at the rest of the division and you see the instability, the inconsistency, and the injuries, and then you look at Pittsburgh, healthy quarterback, steady improvement, smart adjustments, it's hard not to feel like the Steelers are in a pretty enviable spot. Because let's be real, Kenny Pickett hasn't been lighting the world on fire, but he's been there. Available. Competent. That alone puts him ahead of most quarterbacks in the division right now. The Bengals are missing Burrow. The Ravens are holding Lamar together with tape. The Browns, well, they haven't had a stable quarterback situation in what feels like a generation. And as funny as it sounds, even Mason Rudolph, still sitting on Pittsburgh's bench, gives them an edge in terms of depth. You don't want to have to use your backup, but at least they have one who's taken real snaps and knows the system. And if you told any Steelers fan back in August that after 5 weeks, this would be the landscape, Pittsburgh 3-1, everybody else spiraling with obvious flaws that look solvable. They would have taken that deal in a heartbeat. Even with the offensive hiccups, even with the missed tackles early in the year, all of that feels manageable. This isn't a team that's blowing people out, but it's a team that's learning how to win. That matters. And here's the bigger picture. Is there more upside to what we've seen from the Steelers so far? Absolutely. In fact, it's hard to look at the roster and not believe that there's another gear waiting to be unlocked. You've got young talent in critical positions. You got veterans who know how to grind out games. You got a coaching staff that has been through every type of scenario imaginable. There's room for growth. There's a path forward. And that's not something you can say about everyone else in the division right now. The Ravens are stuck in survival mode. The Bengals are one hit away from full collapse. The Browns can't even figure out who's leading the offense from week to week. Meanwhile, Pittsburgh is slowly tightening things up game by game. And yeah, it took a trip halfway across the planet to start turning things around, but if that's what it took, so be it. Injuries are a part of the game. Everyone knows that. And if Pittsburgh had been the one dealing with the kinds of setbacks that Baltimore's going through, people wouldn't be crying about it either. That's the nature of the sport. But the Steelers have quietly dealt with their own absences on defense and still managed to stay afloat, still managed to find ways to win. So while the box scores from the first few weeks might not have been pretty, the end result? 3 wins, 1 loss. A team trending up while the rest of the AFC North is stuck in neutral or worse. And sure, not everything is solved. You can nitpick plenty. But when you take a step back and just evaluate where this team stands, how they've handled adversity, and where they could be headed if a few things click into place, there's legitimate reason for optimism. Not hype, not delusion, just good, solid, earned optimism. Think back to those first couple of games. The offense was, to be blunt, ugly. The play calling lacked rhythm. The line couldn't hold up. The defense looked gassed, missing tackles, misreading coverage assignments. But here's the thing, they didn't spiral. They didn't implode the locker room or make panic moves. They adjusted. Slowly, sure, but effectively. You started seeing more chemistry between Kenny Pickett and his receivers. You started seeing smarter protections. You saw an offensive staff, long criticized for stubbornness, start to show flashes of adaptation. That doesn't always mean fireworks on Sundays, but it means progress. It means you're building something underneath the surface. And on defense, where the Steelers have traditionally made their identity, the issues weren't systemic. It was execution, bad angles, poor wrapping, lack of communication, all things that can be cleaned up and, to their credit, have been, or at least are heading in the right direction. You can see the players starting to trust each other more. You can see them flying to the ball with a little more confidence. The cohesion isn't perfect, but it's improving. And you don't get that improvement without a culture that demands accountability. That's where coaching steps in. And say what you will about Mike Tomlin, but year after year, his teams get better as the season goes on. That's not a coincidence. That's a standard. Now, when you zoom out and look at the rest of the division, that same kind of resilience feels harder to find. The Ravens look like a team searching for answers, not just in terms of health, but in identity. One week, they rely on Lamar to do everything. The next, they try to play it safe and conservative. There's no rhythm. And without a rhythm, you're just guessing every week. The Bengals? It's even worse. Their entire offense has been built around Joe Burrow's timing, his precision, his mobility in the pocket. Take that away, which his injury effectively has, and they don't have a plan B. The results speak for themselves. And Cleveland? That's a team that looks physically tough, but mentally fragile. One mistake turns into 3. One loss turns into a slump. You can't trust them in close games. You can't trust them with a lead. And you sure as hell can't trust their quarterback situation, which has been chaos since the season kicked off. So what you're left with is a Steelers team that may not be dominant, but is durable. They're not a finished product, but they're not flailing either. And in a division full of question marks, being the one with some stability is a massive advantage. That stability extends all the way to the quarterback position. Kenny Pickett, for all the criticism, has shown something that is not easy to quantify: control. He doesn't panic. He doesn't turn the ball over at a high rate. He doesn't get spooked by pressure. Is he a finished product? Not at all. But he's available. He's steady, and that alone gives the Steelers something their rivals would kill for right now. And let's not ignore the chemistry side of things. This group, for all its youth and inconsistency, seems to genuinely believe in what they're building. That belief matters. It's the kind of intangible that doesn't show up on stat sheets, but makes a huge difference when a season starts getting long, when injuries pile up, when the schedule gets tougher. You need a locker room that's aligned, that's pulling in the same direction. You don't always see that in teams that start slow, but with the Steelers, you can sense it. They trust the process. They trust the adjustments, and they trust each other. That's not nothing. Now here comes the stretch that'll tell us who this team really is. Divisional games are different. They're personal. They're intense. They're usually ugly, and they count for double in the standings. The Browns, as flawed as they are, would love nothing more than to drag the Steelers into the mud and steal a win. The Bengals are in desperation mode and will throw everything they have into that Thursday night game to keep their season from slipping away. These aren't just regular matchups. These are defining moments. The kind of games where reputations are made or broken. And for the Steelers, it's a chance to take all the progress they've made and prove it matters against teams that know them best. But let's also acknowledge something else. Depth matters now more than ever. And Pittsburgh, despite the occasional hiccup, is in a relatively healthy place. They're not scrambling to fill critical positions like some other teams in the division. And if they stay that way, it opens the door for growth, not just survival. That's huge. You can actually focus on development, on execution, on sharpening your strengths rather than just patching holes every week. That's what the best teams do. And for the first time in a while, the Steelers might be entering that zone. So what's the ceiling? It's too early to say. This league flips narratives in an instant. One injury, one misstep, one blown game plan can turn everything. But for now, the Steelers have control, not just of their record, but of their path forward. And that's the key difference between them and the rest of the AFC North. They're not waiting for someone to save them. They're not hoping for a miracle. They're grinding, fixing mistakes, and getting better. It might not be flashy. It might not be dominating the highlight reels. But it's real. And that's how playoff teams are built. But before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and hit the like button on this video. Your support helps us keep bringing you the latest updates on the Pittsburgh Steelers. And don't forget to share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. In a statement that has sent shockwaves through the NFL community, Seattle Seahawks wide receiver DK Metcalf reportedly made headlines over the weekend with comments about Pittsburgh Steelers linebacker TJ Watt. Sources close to the situation say the remarks were offhand, but quickly went viral among fans and analysts alike, sparking a flurry of speculation about what Metcalf really meant. The tone of the comments, according to insiders, was both surprising and somewhat cryptic, leaving room for countless interpretations. Some observers suggest Metcalf's words were a playful nod to Watt's on-field dominance, while others are convinced there's more beneath the surface. The Seahawks star, known for his confident and sometimes provocative personality, allegedly compared Watt to a force of nature and hinted at future matchups that could define the season. This has led to an explosion of chatter on social media, with fans dissecting every possible angle, from trash talk to genuine respect. Analysts on sports networks are reportedly debating whether Metcalf's statement was purely motivational, a prelude to an epic showdown, or a calculated move to get under the skin of one of the league's premier defensive players. Adding fuel to the rumor fire, a few unnamed insiders hinted that locker room reactions to Metcalf's comments were mixed, with teammates reportedly laughing off the remark while some coaching staff may have quietly raised eyebrows. Across NFL circles, the timing of the statement is seen as uncanny, coinciding with speculation about Watt's potential contract situations and playoff implications. Some pundits are already predicting a narrative where Metcalf and what could be at the center of a high-stakes rivalry narrative, one that could dominate headlines for weeks, if not months. While neither Metcalf nor Watt have officially clarified the comment, the NFL rumor mill is running at full speed. Fans of both players are eagerly awaiting the next encounter on the field, anticipating fireworks, while journalists scramble to interpret what might have been a simple offhand compliment or a strategic hint at something much bigger. One thing is clear. In a world of NFL intrigue, DK Metcalf has managed to put TJ Watt back in the spotlight in a way few could have predicted. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to keep receiving exclusive news about the Pittsburgh Steelers, make sure to subscribe to Steelers Nation Central and give this video a like. We always look forward to hearing your comments and opinions. See you in the next video.